You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, we're going to learn all about Alaska here. No pressure.
Can't wait.
All right.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast. I'm your host, Steve Creasy, and joining me today, as always, when I can track her down, the co-host of the show, Christy Puttick of PackYourPixieDust.com. How you doing today, Christy?
I'm well. How are you?
Pretty good. And we are heading north of Detroit up into the Wisconsin region to bring back Jen. And I'm really excited to bring you back. Welcome back to the show, Jen.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and Jen was the first person to come on our show that I did not know. Reached out and contacted us, and that was back over a year ago. And I remember after we got done talking about your trip on the Magic, and you were talking about your trip to Alaska, and it seemed like it was so far away, and here it's already come and gone. And we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
So we're going to talk all about your guys' trip on the Disney Wonder to Alaska today. And Christy, you just had a wonderful time up there earlier in the summer as well, didn't you?
I did. It was awesome. I cannot wait to return.
Yeah, and this is a trip that I know is on a lot of people's buckets list, finally putting away all the easiness of the Caribbean where it's warm and you get that warm sand and Castaway Cay, and you're going upward to the north where the wind's howling and it's cold, and it's kind of like that vision of, what was it, the Deadliest Catch up there, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's Alaska's absolutely beautiful, and I know it's a huge bucket list for a lot of people, so it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to you about your experiences tonight. So let's just jump into it. Why did you guys decide to finally go to Alaska again?
Well, Alaska was on our bucket list. We booked a placeholder last year on our last cruise, and we just decided, just do it. Just do it and get it over with, and I want to go back so bad.
That was your first trip to Alaska?
Yes, first trip to Alaska.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear that over and over again from people when they kind of, once they take that leap and go to Alaska, it's like they just want to go back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would go next summer if I could fit it in and make it work and had disposable income.
Yeah.
Let's remind everybody who went with you this time, Jen.
Just my husband, Alex. It's just me and him. We travel alone. We don't have any kids.
Okay. And
It is. It
well,
is your
right.
husband.
It's my husband, Alex. But it's just me and him.
Okay, well, before we get into the actual cruise part, what did you guys do to prepare? I know that this is your 5th cruise with Disney, and congratulations for making gold.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's always exciting to move up that next level. And
Yeah.
What did you guys do to kind of prepare for Alaska? It's a little bit different cruise, what you want to pack and what you're going to see. What were some of the resources that you used to prepare for this cruise?
And as you're answering that, can you just remind us, when did you cruise? Was it August?
We cruised September 3rd. Actually, on Labor Day, it was the last cruise of the season for Disney.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We kind of, we listen to a bunch of Disney podcasts. So we listen to podcasts about Alaska. We listen to your show. We kind of looked online just to see our Facebook group. There was actually somebody that lived in Alaska. So she kind of kept us up to date on the weather forecast. And basically not a whole lot. We just, we watched some Alaska shows and like Wild Alaska and stuff, but we didn't really do a whole lot of prep. I mean, we're from Wisconsin, so we're used to the cold. The cold doesn't bother us, so we didn't pack too differently than we normally would. I mean, the Caribbean, we always wear shorts, but, we just made sure we had an extra pair of pants and maybe a hat and some gloves, and we were good to go.
Was everybody else just singing, "The cold doesn't bother me anyway"?
Yeah. Some people were worried about it.
Well, how was the weather on your trip? So that last sailing in September before the Wonder makes her way back down to San Diego, what kind of weather did you guys have up there?
So the first 3 days were absolutely gorgeous. It was like low 70s. The sun was out, no rain, nothing. The crew members were even saying how nice of the weather it was. They were talking about 2 sailings before us. It was rainy and gloomy and all that kind of stuff. And the last 3 days were the sun was out, but it was rainy at times. It was a little gloomy at times, but it was sprinkling or misting at the most.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it sounds about perfect almost for that time of year up in Alaska to have, 3 beautiful days like that. So that's awesome you guys had that.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Okay, well, let's talk about getting to Vancouver. Vancouver's up there in Canada. I'm assuming you guys, since you're from Wisconsin, you guys flew into Vancouver. Where did you guys stay, and how did you figure that out?
We actually flew from Minneapolis to Seattle and spent a couple days in Seattle before Vancouver. And from Seattle to Vancouver, we just drove. It was cheaper that way than to fly directly to Vancouver because flying direct is very expensive. So we decided to extend our trip a little bit and check out Seattle and then drive to Vancouver. In Vancouver, we stayed at the Days Inn, which is like 3 or 4 blocks just away from the port. So on the day we sailed, we just walked to the port from our hotel. It was so nice and easy.
That sounds like what you would do, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great tip too. You'd like to get out to people too. Seattle is what I think it's a 3-hour drive to from Seattle up to Vancouver. How was the drive up there and getting across the border? Not too bad.
The drive was easy. Going across the border was kind of a nightmare because it was Labor Day weekend. Everybody was there.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, so it took us like 2 hours to cross the border.
Did you have passports or enhanced driver's license?
Passports.
Do you guys have that option in Wisconsin?
We do have enhanced driver's license, but they don't work for crossing the border.
Okay.
And we've had our passports for our other cruises, so we always take our passports with us.
So some states, like Steve, what about Oregon? We have enhanced licenses, so we can get a license so we could drive across the border.
Oregon doesn't, that I know of. They had just come up with that in Washington when we moved down to Oregon, so I never had one of the enhanced driver's license, but I know Washington has that. So if you live in Washington, you can go back and forth without your passport. But
you need it to fly, though. So just for the listeners, if you are flying into Canada from the United States, you do have to have a passport. An enhanced license is not good enough. And if you're doing one of the crossings, like if you're doing a trip into the Yukon from Skagway, you need to have a passport as well.
Yeah, so best bet, just make sure you have your passport with you. But that's a great tip you put out there, Jen, that it is pretty expensive to fly into Vancouver. And, one of your other options is to fly into Seattle. Portland would be about a 6-7 hour trip up to Vancouver. You could even look into Portland. Yeah, depending upon the time of year or what day it is, that border could be kind of, it can really get backed up. So one thing that I would once again never recommend doing is flying into Seattle the morning of and then trying to make it up there for the cruise the day of.
Oh, yeah.
That would just be a nightmare.
No, I would definitely give yourself a day in advance and don't schedule anything the day you're arriving to Vancouver, because if, like, we had already bought tickets to the Science Museum because they were having the Pixar exhibit.
Ooh.
And we were worried that we weren't going to make our ticket time, even though it wasn't an issue anyway. But we got to that border and we were like, oh, my gosh. So allow yourselves plenty of time to cross.
Did you drive back at the end of the cruise as well?
We actually took the Greyhound back from Vancouver to Seattle.
How was that?
It was fine, except for when I got sick on the last day of the trip. So traveling by bus wasn't the best. And also, I didn't realize that the Greyhound bus stops at like a bunch of different stops in between. And also, when you're crossing the border back, you have to get off the bus, take off all your luggage, and go through the border with everything that you came with. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a full bus of like, I don't know, 60 people or so, trying to go through the border. And when we first came into the border building, there was only one person inside working.
Oh my God.
And by the time we left, they had finally opened up enough lines because there were several buses behind us. But at first, we didn't think we were ever going to get through because there was only one person.
Wow. So good things to note.
Yeah.
They also run a train. Amtrak runs a train that goes between Vancouver and Seattle, so that's an option too. And I know that at least in the train, I think you do like what you do when you fly out of Vancouver, where you go through customs ahead of time in Canada. so you don't stop at the border like that. So that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, does it?
No. And the other thing about the train is we were actually going to originally take the train to Seattle, but something happened and we had to end up driving. But the train, usually the hours are either 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. You would not be able to get to the train on time and go through customs to make that 7 a.m. because you're just getting off the ship. So you would have to wait until the nighttime shift to take the train back.
Oh.
Which is another reason why we didn't take the train back, because it was coming back so late.
Yeah, good point there. Unless you want to spend the day in Vancouver. If you hadn't done that, you guys did that leaving, or before you guys left, so
right.
That totally makes sense. I guess you could plan it that way to maybe spend the day in Vancouver after your last day on the ship, but
right, but then you're carrying all your luggage around with you too.
Right,
so.
Yeah, you'd have to figure out a place to put your luggage. They might have that at the train station, but that's getting too deep in the woods here, I guess. Probably.
I think they don't anymore. The whole security thing, you can't store stuff like that anymore.
I saw it in Seattle the other day. I was walking through the airport.
Still?
Yeah, they have it in the airport there in Seattle. They have a baggage place where you can store your luggage.
Ooh.
So,
well, that's good. Then they've figured out a way to make that work again. That's great.
Yeah. Okay, let's just get to the cruise itself then. So you guys stay the days in and you walk over to the port. How was embarkation that day out of Vancouver?
So this was kind of confusing and a little frustrating. When we got to Canada Place, there were no signs, no people on telling us where to go. So there was like a front desk person, which I think was for actually the hotel. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. So we had to ask them, we're like, where do we go? We're going on a cruise. I mean, we see the ship, it's right there, but we didn't know like where to go to get on it. And they told us, walk down this hall. So we keep walking down this hall. There's still no signs. There's still no people. Fortunately, there was a Norwegian ship the same day that Disney was there, and they were also embarking. So I don't know if they worked out something with Disney, but the Norwegian people told us where to go and how to get on. And so it was like, go here, jump up, go around, go up and go down. I mean, it was kind of really confusing. I'm surprised that Disney didn't have better signage or better instructions on where to go, what to do. Because it was like, normally we sailed out of Port Canaveral, we sailed out of Puerto Rico. You give your bags to the porter, then you go through security, then you check in and do all that stuff. Well, here it was, you check in, you drop off your bags, you go through security, then you go through customs. And then you get to sit and wait to board the ship. So, I mean, we got to the port an hour early, and I'm glad that we did, because between getting lost, confused, the lines, I mean, we checked in at a good time, but I would suggest getting there a little early if you're confused on where to go or what to do.
I wonder if it would be different if you were getting dropped off or driving.
Maybe. But I mean, you enter Canada Place in the front, I would assume, unless people go somewhere else that I'm not aware of.
So when we sailed out of there, we parked, and there's actually a huge parking garage underneath Canada Place there, and it's pretty reasonable to drive up and park there for the week. But I do kind of remember that, because you got in luckily, there was kind of a crowd there by the time we got there, so we were just kind of following everybody else. But I remember coming up the elevator, and there really wasn't any signs, and it's kind of like, well, where do we go from here? And then so we just kind of followed everybody. But I do kind of remember that, now that you're talking about it.
So, I mean, Embark was a little confusing and a little strange than what I'm used to. But like I said, we left an hour early, even before our port time said to arrive. So everything was fine. It was just a little frustrating on where to go or what to do. But we made it on the ship, and our vacation started.
Okay, and so this is the first time you guys have been on the Wonder. What did you think of her when you first got on board?
I thought it was beautiful. I loved it. You know, she's just as beautiful as the Magic. I love the adult district. I love the restaurants are great. Everything was great. I loved it.
Well, let's talk about what kind of cabin you booked, because this is kind of a big one in Alaska. A lot of people have some different opinions on it. What did you guys book this time?
We booked a veranda.
Is that what you usually book? I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we usually try to book a veranda. We were on deck 6.
Perfect.
Great.
And what did you think of the room? And what do you think about having a veranda overall, sailing through Alaska and being able to be outside on your own veranda?
The room was great. The Disney rooms are always great, nice and big, plenty of space. I personally would highly suggest, if you can afford it, to book a veranda. On our last sea day, we were sitting in our room, and all of a sudden we see whales going by and sea otters going by, and everybody on that side of the ship was freaking out because there was so much wildlife that we saw just sailing past. And we wouldn't have seen that if we weren't either on the upper decks or we didn't have a veranda. So if you can afford it, I would go for it. But if you're that type of person who's not going to spend any time in their room other than sleeping, I would say going to Alaska or, in an inside stateroom, or not go in an inside stateroom, but spend your time outside.
No, those are all good points. And it's kind of amazing being up there, going through the Inside Passage, how much you get to see because you are so close to land, seeing the animals, and just seeing boats go by. I don't know if you had a chance to see very many like the fishing boats and some of the pleasure boats going by, but I thought that was amazing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw so many other cruise ships up there as well. It was neat to see everything.
Well, let's talk about the food on the ship. Did you guys eat in the main dining rooms, or did you book any nights in Palo?
We did both. We actually booked the first night on Palo, but we booked it early so that if our first night ended up being in Tiana's place, we didn't want to miss that. We didn't. Our first night was in Triton's, and we had eaten lunch in Triton's, so we just went to Palo and then skipped going at the late dinner seating.
So that answers that question, what seating you had.
Yeah,
you
the
had
late seating. Yep.
I've never talked to anybody that went to Palo the first night. Did you like that, going up to Palo the first night?
Yeah, I mean, going to Palo any night is okay in my book because I love it. But usually, if you book Palo the first night, you can typically book a second night in Palo.
Right. Did you do that?
We didn't on this cruise. We did it on our last one. The reason why we didn't on this one is because, again, we weren't sure of our dining rotation and we didn't want to miss Tiana's. We figured one night, and between so many ports and everything else, that we just wanted to enjoy it the first night and get it out of the way, and then kind of enjoy just whatever we ended up doing the rest of the cruise.
So the Wonder has Tiana's Place, which is the new one, and then Animator's Palette, and then as you talked about Triton's. Let's talk about Tiana's then. What did you think?
I loved it. I loved the theming. I liked the show. The only thing I didn't really like about the restaurant is that it does get a little loud, but I loved the decor. I love the story. I loved everything about it.
That was your experience too, right, Steve? That you loved it?
Yeah, I thought it was, but I like the music. I love that kind of Creole, Cajun type of music and
jazz.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was really fun. I thought the food was really good. You're right; it is kind of loud, and it's kind of going. It probably starts maybe about 15. What do you think, about 15 minutes after everybody kind of gets in there and sits down, and they start going, and it kind of goes for a good 30 or 20 minutes. So if you're looking to have a conversation with the people around you, that's a little bit hard to do. But then after that, it kind of quietens down, and the characters go around the restaurant, right?
Yeah. We actually, our table was on an aisle seat, so we got up close time with Tiana and Louie.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was cool. I got some great pictures with them.
So was that your favorite then, dining, besides maybe Palo?
On the Wonder, probably, yeah.
How was your serving team this time?
Our serving team was amazing. This is the best service we've ever had on any of our cruises. The food was amazing. They were very attentive. They listened to us. It was just phenomenal. And on top of it, my husband, Alex, is a vegetarian. And so the waiters knew this cook on the ship who cooks Indian food, but it's vegetarian because he cooked for the crew. So 3 nights, the last 3 nights of our cruise, this chef out of Animator's Palette cooked this private Indian dinner for my husband 3 nights, and he absolutely loved it. And I thought it was amazing.
What a nice touch. Those are, I think, the perfect Disney touches.
Exactly. It was so awesome. It was the best service we've ever had to date.
So just out of curiosity, did you guys ask for that, or did your waiter kind of suggest it?
No, not at all. Our waiter suggested it. He, like the third night in or whatever, he told my husband there's a chef that cooks Indian food, and all of a sudden, like 15 minutes later, he comes out with these 3 big plates of like rice and Indian curry and tortilla shells, and he's like, here you go, have at it. And we're like, oh my gosh. And then the second night, the same thing. And then by the third night, my husband skipped Tiana's dinner menu completely. He just wanted this Indian food.
Oh, you're making me hungry right now thinking about it. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so amazing. It was just unbelievable.
So are you a seafood person?
I am not.
Okay, I know a lot of people are, 50-50 on seafood sometimes. But did you notice on this sailing, a lot of the times, like, when the Magic's over in Europe, they try and incorporate some of the food from the different countries as you go through it. And I think do they still run the barbecue when you went up to see the glacier on the back of the ship?
I think they do, but I'm not sure because we didn't see it, but we weren't up on deck that long that day, so I'm pretty sure they had it. But I did notice that they, several nights had Alaskan, salmon or other seafood. I think they have like crab legs or something. I'm not sure. But I noticed on the menu there was definitely something Alaskan every night.
I think that's kind of cool that they do that. I haven't been down to the Caribbean as much. Do you notice anything different in the Caribbean, Christy, on any of the sailings down there? Did they do that?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
No. Yeah.
Short answer, but no.
No jerk chicken or anything like that? Anyways.
I mean, they probably have a night of jerk chicken. I think on Pirate Night. Don't they have jerk chicken?
Yeah.
On Pirate Night?
Yeah,
but
Pirate
that's
Night.
probably everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they still run that. That was amazing. It was the day we went up to Tracy Arm, and I know you guys went someplace different where we were going to talk about, but they had an outdoor barbecue where they were actually grilled up some salmon, some reindeer sausage, and several other different things. It was really good. So I think it's kind of cool when they incorporate kind of some of the foods from around the area, so the region you're in as well.
Was that at lunch that they did that?
Yeah, it was back by in that back deck area behind Cabanas. So kind of that open area where you can sit. They set it up there, and it was really cool.
Nice.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that you guys did before we get into the actual port stuff. What were some of the things that you guys took in on the ship as far as the shows? Did they have a naturalist talk? Did you get any of those? And what were some of the things you guys did during your sea days?
They did have 2 different naturalists. One did the first half of the cruise. The other one did the second half of the cruise. We did 2 of those. The shows, they had a group called the Beverly Bells on, and it's a trio of women who sing like the wartime Andrew Sister vibe, kind of like the Boogie Woogie, Bugle Boy kind of stuff.
Huh.
But for their family show, what they did was they sang Disney songs to that type of music. And then later on for the adult show, they sang songs that you would hear on the radio today to that type of music. So it was really cool. It was a great show. And then after the family show, they stood outside of Preludes and they would sign a postcard with their picture on it. They would sign their names and then they would sign it to you. And they were also selling CDs, so I got one of those. But that was really cool. I love that show. They were so enjoyable and so neat.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was. I hope Disney brings them back. And then we did go see Frozen. We only stayed for about 45 minutes because it was right before dinner, and at that point it was getting a little long, so we left to go see dinner. I'm not a big Frozen fan, so we had seen most of what we wanted to see. Like, we saw the puppets and we saw the special effects, which is what I wanted to see. So we saw most of that. We did a couple trivias. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go to a movie because we just didn't have enough time because Alaska is such a port-heavy cruise. but we didn't mind that. We'll give that up for Alaska. I don't know. We just kind of, most of it was, Alaska. We did go to one of the nights, we did go to Match My Mate, which is Disney's version of the Newlywed Game. That's always fun. I highly suggest going to those if you get the chance.
Have you ever been up on stage for that by any chance?
No, my husband will not let me.
What about you, Steve? Are you going to try out?
I think my wife, Anawik, would love to be up there, but it would totally embarrass me. It'd be one of those things I'd be embarrassed to go up there and do it, but I'd love it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What did you think of the naturalist talks that you guys went to? Were they pretty good? Did it kind of give you a lot of background on some of the beauty and the animals up in Alaska?
Yeah, I love the naturalist talk. However, like the first lady, now I know that I'm a cruiser who likes to research and be prepared before I go on the ship. And I'm guessing about at least half of the people aren't like that. They maybe wing it or, just want to experience it firsthand and go into it. So the first lady, she kind of spent like 20 minutes of the 45-minute talk talking about salmon. I mean, I understand that, it's one of Alaska's biggest, resources and what they send out to the rest of the world and stuff. But it kind of felt a little overkill to me. She kind of glazed over a bunch of other interesting stuff and spent like 20 minutes talking about the fish. And I'm like, I get it. It's important. I respect it. But like, there's so much other stuff to talk about that it was kind of overkill to us. But maybe to the average person who didn't know, it would have been interesting. The second lecture we went to was talking about the glaciers and everything else, and we loved that one. The guy was really knowledgeable, and he did a great job.
I'm shaking my head. That doesn't translate, though.
It's hard to see that on a podcast. Anything else you want to ask about the ship or time on the ship, Christy?
No. So far, I'm good.
What were the pool decks like? Did you guys go up there at all, like to the adult area? Was that pretty busy during the sea days by any chance, or just curious what those are like for people?
The sea days, they weren't actually all that crowded. I think the only crowded part was the hot tubs. We did actually go swimming in the day we were in Skagway because it was so warm and the pool was heated. It was great. And the hot tubs were busy, of course, but yeah, it didn't seem that crowded to me. Not like a normal Caribbean cruise, obviously.
Well, let's talk about the ports itself. So you leave out of Vancouver. Your first day is a day at sea. After that, kind of fill everybody in where you guys went after that.
So the next day was Icy Strait Point. And in Icy Strait, we did a whale and marine mammals cruise, basically whale watching. It was amazing. We saw so much wildlife. We saw a raft of sea otters. We saw sea lions. We saw eagles. We also saw a pod of humpback whales, and we saw them bubble feeding too.
That's awesome.
Could you kind of explain what that is?
So sort of is they create these bubbles and to bring up the fish, and then they like on the surface of the water, and then they come up and they start feeding, I guess. It's apparently a very rare thing to see, but we actually saw it. And we got so close to the whales that even one of them at one point swam underneath the tour boat. They were that close. Even our captain was like jumped out of the captain part, grabbed his cell phone and started recording. Everybody was freaking out because nobody had ever gotten that close before.
And obviously your captain stopped their boat and it just happened to float towards where the whales were.
Right. They sail to a safety point and then they turn off the engine. And he said that according to, I forget who makes law, but you can only spend like 30 minutes around the whales. But he turned off the engine. They put a microphone thing in the water, and then another guy used his cell phone, and we could hear the whales call too.
No.
Yeah. It was so amazing. It was the most amazing experience of my life. It was unbelievable.
That sounds awesome.
To be so close to, animals that big, it's just got to be amazing on the water.
Yeah.
How many people were on your excursion? Sorry.
The boat fits about, I think, maybe 100 or 120. It wasn't that big. It wasn't very crowded.
Did you book through Disney, or did you look elsewhere for some of your tours? And Christy, can you talk about that too, as far as like price differences? From what I remember, I don't think I think that the cruise prices are pretty competitive compared to what you can get off the boat. Is that true?
Yeah, it would be competitive. Oftentimes, the private excursions are a little bit cheaper, but then you're going through a vendor that Disney hasn't vetted.
And I also looked through Disney and on my own to see what else I could book. And everything that I could find was only like a $10 or $20 difference. So at that point, I was like, well, just book through Disney. It makes it easier.
And then they deal with the transportation. When you book on your own, you oftentimes have to deal with your own transportation, or you have to find the tour operator when you get off of the ship. So it is easier.
Right.
And I guess that's what I'm kind of remembering, that up in Alaska, at least, the price difference wasn't so drastically different between what the cruise ships were offering and what you can find in the local economy, I guess. So anyway, so that's a good point. Well, awesome. Did you guys get to spend some time in the little village of Icy Strait, or what did you guys do after your tour?
After the tour, they let us off in a different spot that they picked us up. So we did get to walk through Icy Strait. It was, very little. So it wasn't, we went to a couple shops, but there was very little to do, outside of not booking an excursion. They have another big draw for them is that they have this big zip line that goes from the top of the mountain to somewhere in Icy Strait. So we did see that. But after we got off the boat and just kind of walked around, we just got back on the Wonder.
Did you hear from anybody that did the zip line?
Yeah, we heard a couple of people on our Facebook group, and they thought it was so cool. They loved it. But I would never do that because I'm afraid of heights.
Yeah, probably not a good idea then.
Yeah.
From Icy Strait, then, you guys the next day sailed down to Juneau, am I correct?
No, Skagway.
Skagway, okay. So, excuse me, yeah. You head over to Skagway. And what did you guys have planned for Skagway?
So in Skagway, we did the White Pass Scenic Railway, the train that goes into the Yukon Gold Rush part of Skagway, where all the gold miners thought there were gold and started building the railroad tracks. I love the train ride, although, I've heard you say in a previous podcast, one thing you might want to think about is either going on an excursion that takes you further into Canada or getting off and taking either a bus back or something else back, because the way up, to me, seemed more scenic than the way back, if that makes sense.
Was it the same route?
It was the same route, but so basically it goes up, then it stops, then you switch seats with the person on your other side so that they can see the opposite side. But what I would suggest is that you sit on the left-hand side of the train because you see everything going up. And then on the way down, you're on the other side. So if you look over to your right-hand side, you can still see everything, but otherwise you're facing rocks and cliffs and you don't get that much of a scenic view.
So good point there. Either take it up, stay on the left-hand side, or take the bus up, do something else, and then come back and get on the right-hand side, huh?
Yeah.
To have the best view. And I forget, Christy, did you guys take the train back? I know you took the bus up, right?
Yes, and we took the train back.
Okay.
And we had amazing views, but who knows, why that would have been. So just big vistas, and at one point we could actually see to where the ships were. It was really small in the picture, but you could see that area, so that was really cool.
And once you get to the end there, before you turn back, is there much to do? Do you get off the train at all, or do you just swap over there, Jen?
No, you stay on the train and you just go in the aisle and swap seats. They stop at a lake. I think it's called Lake Emily, but I'm not sure on that now. But you stop at a lake and then you swap seats so that if you're sitting on the left, now you're sitting on the right. And you still get scenic views on the way down. It's just that now you're cramming your neck to look over to where you just were. So That's why I say maybe just take it up one way or down one way and then do something else. Yeah, it was a very cool excursion and I loved it. And I'm glad we went because we learned so much about the gold rush and all that. But again, I would, think about booking other things too.
So one of the cool things about most of Alaska, or all of the ports in Alaska, is you can get off and you can walk right to, you're pretty much right downtown for most of the places, and you can walk right into the town, right to the train station. I'm assuming you guys walk there. Did you guys walk around the little town afterwards when you got back, or what did you guys do then?
Yep, we got off the train, and the first stop that it let you off was right downtown. If you didn't want to get off downtown, it also, after everybody got off, they took you to where they picked you up over by the cruise ship.
Oh, so they've changed it. It goes all the way down to the ship now, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got off downtown and we walked around Skagway. We kind of looked at the buildings. We looked at the, I think the Red Onion Saloon is there. That's a famous saloon with the torrid history. And we did a little shopping. I went to the post office because I send myself postcards from different locations that we go to for scrapbooking and stuff. We could have ate lunch there if we wanted to, or dinner, because Skagway was our longest day in port. It was like from 7:15 to 8 p.m. But we just decided to look around, do what we wanted to do a little bit of shopping, and then get back on the Wonder. And we ate lunch on the Wonder, and then we went swimming because it was so beautiful that day.
Does the postage cost the same to mail something from Alaska?
Yes, it does.
I mean, obviously, it's United States and the United States Postal Service. I just didn't know if that was different, continental U.S. versus not. So, good to know.
Yeah.
From Skagway, you guys make your way down to Juneau, and this is something different, I guess. I didn't realize that they did this, but why don't you talk about your day in Juneau and what happened that day?
So in Juneau, we were in port from about 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., so just afternoon. For that day, we went to the Mendenhall Glacier, and we took a bus there, so we got to ride through Juneau. We got to see through Juneau. And then we spent, I think it was like 2 hours at the glacier. And it was great for photo ops. They've got trails where you can walk to get closer to the glacier. They've got like a little visitor center, a little gift shop, and a little film that they play, and some things around the forest station that, kind of tells you the history. So I thought it was great because it allowed us to get not very close, but closer to a glacier and see it kind of with our own eyes and kind of feel like, the ice and the water closer. Although it would have been nice because Juneau was such a short day. I wish we would have had a little bit of time to go into town and check it out more, because we basically spent all our time at the glacier. But if we maybe would have booked a different excursion or just went on our own, we could have had more time in Juneau. But we'll just have to go back, I guess.
For sure.
I was surprised that they have such a short time in Juneau because there's so many different things that you can do there. It's an amazing port. You can take a city bus that actually runs out to that area as well if you want to do that kind of adventure, try and find that yourself. But obviously it's going to be easier to do like what you did, and you probably get a little bit more history out of it than riding on the city bus. But there's that opportunity you could do that and then come back into town possibly if you wanted to do it faster. And I'm losing my voice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. And I think that's maybe next time that's what we would do, or maybe that's something you want to think about is, try to find a way to the glacier, check it out. Unless you're really going to hike around the trails, which takes a couple of hours apparently. I would go there, check it out, maybe spend an hour, but then go do something else in Juneau.
Well, from there, you guys leave at 12:30, and you guys are off to Endicott Arm. And let's hear a little bit about that and why. And you've got a reason why they went to Endicott Arm too.
So, according to the captain, he said that we went to Endicott due to the weather and the ice in the area. We didn't get too close to the glacier because of those reasons, I believe, but we did get to see it still. And there was so much ice going past the boat and the veranda. It was so cool. You know, that's where we got to see that ice blue that everybody talks about in Alaska. It was a little cold and a little misty that day, so it was a little bit colder for us. But they handed out blankets. They had hot cocoa. They were giving out, or you could get like warm sangria or something to drink too. But it was very cool to see.
Did you watch from the upper decks?
So we started out on our veranda, and then we went to the upper deck, and I spent maybe like an hour up there. My husband spent maybe a couple more hours up there. But as we were walking around the veranda is when we saw the filming for the Andy Mack show.
Oh, wow. So talk a little bit about that.
So there was a film crew on our cruise because there was a camera guy on our Icy Strait adventure. But when I got up on the deck, there was a roped off area and a bunch of people standing around and a kid playing a guitar. And I'm like, what's going on? And then I see the film crew and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're filming something. Come to find out when we got back online, I'm like, does anybody know who was filming? And one of the Facebook people said that there was something posted on the kids club saying, if you wanted to be part of the show, bring your family to this location at this date and this time, and you can be part of the filming. Well, it turns out it was for the Andy Mack show. And there's going to be a special prime time on November 29th. So if you watch it, he was on our cruise, or they were on our cruise.
That's very cool.
So if you're not looking at a map like I am right now, Endicott Arm is kind of down by Tracy Arm. And Tracy Arm is generally where the Wonder goes up to spend the time to see the glacier. So it's just a little bit south of Juneau. And I do know, you know, depending upon how warm it is, that kind of limits how close the bigger ships can get to, because the glaciers will be calving. So kind of interesting that he decided to go to Endicott Arm, but I'm assuming it's probably because you were going to get a better view that day from the glaciers rather than going up Tracy Arm.
Yeah, that's what I believe too.
Did you get some pretty cool photos? Did you bring a camera with at all? We should have asked that.
Oh yeah, we didn't bring one of those with the lenses that go out 3 feet. We just brought a digital camera, and that worked pretty well for us. We bought something that zoomed in well, and something that we could have battery charge, and that took lots and lots of pictures, because that's what you do in Alaska. So we were just fine with a little digital camera, but there were tons of people with those like mega scope cameras that went, 3 feet out in front of them.
Was that what you had, Christy? I can't remember. I know you got a new camera too.
Yeah, it was not 3 feet. Maybe a half a foot.
Excuse me, people are going to have to move out of the way. I'm coming through with my camera. I'm going to get a picture here.
I'm only 5 foot, and then I have a 3 foot camera. That would be awesome. On the glacier, so my understanding, and Steve, maybe you can tell me if this is wrong, that Glacier National Park is actually like the ships go in there, but in Disney doesn't have access. But that's where you kind of get closer in the ship, that the captain will turn the ship so everybody can see the glacier. But Tracy Arm, the glaciers are still typically a distance away, right? Because it's more of a cruising through.
Well, both Tracy Arm and Endicott Arm, and I'm assuming you guys went all the way to the end of the. Do you know, Jen, if you went all the way to the end of the arm there to see the glacier?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so it's kind of a dead-end point where Glacier Bay, it's kind of all around you. There's glaciers all around you. It's a big bay area. These arms are kind of like small fingers that they kind of go down to. And Tracy Arm actually has 2 glaciers that they can go to, and I don't have the names right now, but they'll pull up pretty close, and right in that little area, they'll do like a 360 or a 180 so everybody can get a good look of the glacier before you head back out the other way.
And you're close enough where you can hear it calving and things like that, if it does?
To be honest, we didn't get that close that day. You could see it in the distance. It was still pretty impressive, but I haven't been to Glacier Bay. I've always heard Glacier Bay is just amazing. I think you might be able to get a little bit closer generally in Glacier Bay maybe than up Tracy Arm, but that would be speculation a little bit. That's a good question. I don't have a total answer, but what was kind of your experience? Did you guys go down and do the 180 degree turn as well, Jen?
Yeah, they did that turn for us. And that's, again, another reason why I'm kind of glad we went to Mendenhall, is so that we could see a glacier up closer than we did in Endicott Arm.
Yeah, and I think last year, or maybe it was this year, I'm kind of drawn, I can't remember exactly, but there was an opportunity where you could actually book they have smaller ships that'll get closer to these glaciers than the Wonder will when they go up to Tracy Arm, and you could actually book an excursion. And I thought we had somebody on talking about it where they'd gotten closer, but actually they didn't do it, but they saw that it didn't really get as close as they thought it was going to get. So it was pretty pricey to do. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hate to say...
I know you can do that on other cruise lines. I'm not sure about the Wonder, but if you could do it on the Wonder, yeah, I'm guessing it's pretty pricey.
I thought I saw that you could do it. Maybe I'm getting it confused with Norwegian now because we were looking at some Norwegian stuff. But anyways, still beautiful, amazing to get up there and see it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Well, so from there, you guys leave Endicott Arm, and then you make your way down for your last port, which is Ketchikan. What did you guys have planned there?
Mm-hmm. We did the Misty Fjords and Wilderness Explorer tour. It was about a 4.5-hour tour where you go to the Misty Fjords National Monument. It's basically, whatever wildlife you see going there. We saw a couple sea otters. We saw a bunch of eagles. But it's basically this place where you go and you see all these little waterfalls coming from all over the place. There's a bunch of rock cliffs and edges, and then all of a sudden you just see water coming from anywhere. You go to the new Eddystone Rock, which is a volcanic spire, which is very cool to see. And apparently it's when the tide is low and you can actually walk out there. People in Alaska apparently get married there. So, I mean, it was really interesting to see, but because we had some rain, we were able to see there was 50 different waterfalls, anything very, very tiny to very, very big. It was just gorgeous and serenic, and it was just great.
Was this on a boat?
No, it was on a boat again. It was kind of the same boat you would do a whale watching tour, kind of enclosed, but you could go outside.
You said it was about a 4.5-hour tour?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They did provide snacks. They did offer vegetarian chili and a clam chowder. That was part of the excursion for free. And then they also had snacks on board. On our tour, they also had a gold native wood carver on board. And he was carving wood, and he told us, his experience with that. And then our naturalist on board was also talking about, the stuff all around, but was also talking about how, the Alaskan school kids, when they're in grade school, they're given survival classes. They take a class out. They tell them how to, tent and make a fire and find food and forage and do all these things, which I found very interesting. We don't do that down here, but they do that up there.
Yeah. Do you know bear spray is a real thing? The tour guides will have them with them so that they can spray off the bears if bears get close.
Yeah, they were
crazy.
talking about that too. Yeah.
Did you guys see any bears or anything like that when you were out?
We didn't. That is the only animal we didn't see. But other people who did other adventures definitely saw bears.
It still sounds awesome, though.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. The nature is nothing like you'll ever see down here.
So then you make your way back to Ketchikan after the tour. Did you get a chance to explore around the little downtown area there?
We did. We had about 7 hours. So when we got off our tour, I had started not feeling well this day. So we kind of just went to the closest store next to the boat and got back on the ship. We could see Creek Street from where we were, but we didn't get a chance to go up there. And I'm kind of upset about that. But we did go to a couple shops and then just get back on board. But we would have had more time if we wanted it.
And did you get a cold? Is that what you had?
Yeah, I got a cold. I started feeling not good on that day. And then the last day of the trip, I got a full-blown cold. So, Yeah, I think I just wore myself out from Seattle and Vancouver and everything, and just with the time difference kind of hit us a little bit harder than I was expecting. So
Yeah, that time difference is brutal.
yeah, and it's so weird because I don't have any problems like going to Florida or, going forward, but going backward just mixed me up.
And it's backward 3 hours for you, so that's a lot.
Yeah, that it is.
Well, I think the hard part about it is, especially going up to Alaska where it's light for so long too, is, you want to stay up. You want to continue to do more, and that kind of can put you behind the power curve after a couple of days.
Yeah.
By September, was that still the case though? Was it still late?
It was, but I don't think as light as late as it normally gets. I think it started getting dusk fall like around, I think, like 8-ish, 9-ish. Like right as we were starting to go to dinner, it started getting a little darker, and then by the time when we were done with dinner, it was dark.
Yeah, so the mid part of the season, it's probably light most of the time. But yeah, like as you said there in September, but that's still pretty late. 10 o'clock at night. By the time you're getting done with dinner and it's dark, yeah, it kind of makes you. I have that hard time when I go to Hawaii because you want to just keep going and doing things, and then all of a sudden you realize that it's 3 or 4 hours past when you normally go to bed, and then you're waking up early the next morning again because you're still on that Central Standard Time or whatever time zone you're on.
Yeah.
That goes in the first world problems category.
Definitely. So, well, not a fun way to end with a cold, that last sea day, but any thoughts on the last sea day and then as you guys make your way down to Vancouver?
Last sea day is always sad because it's ending, but we had, went to our last night was in Tiana's place, and that was the night they were doing Mardi Gras. But unfortunately, I could not sit the whole way through. But Alex brought me back some beignets, so it was all good.
Aw. Who did they pair you with at dinner?
We actually ended up getting a table by ourselves. The later dinner was not as busy or as full, and there was actually a lot of room at all the tables, I noticed. So I don't know why we didn't get anybody, but it was just us.
Did you like that?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
What you felt about it?
Yeah, I did. I didn't mind it at all. It would have been nice to sit with somebody, but it was also nice for us to just kind of reflect on the day of what we did. And, we may have gotten better service of it too, because it was just the two of us, but it was nice. I don't mind it either way.
I'm shaking my head again.
Yeah, it's kind of good and bad. It's kind of fun to meet other people, but also it's kind of nice not to have to expend the energy. You can just relax and talk about the day, like you said. So, well, you guys make your way back to Vancouver. How was the disembarkation process? Is it a little bit easier than getting on board?
Yes, disembark was way easier. The only thing I would say is maybe not wait for them to call your colored tag if you're in a hurry or if you just want to get out of there. Our color tag was the last tag to be called.
Oh.
So by the time we got to the taxis, it was like an hour wait to get a taxi. So, if you want to get out of there, if you're not going to eat breakfast or anything, I would say just go when they start calling the first color tag, and then that way you'll be able to get a taxi faster.
The only problem with that is I don't think they put all the luggage out at the same time.
Oh.
So, for sure, other cruise lines do it that way where your luggage isn't necessarily out because sometimes those spaces aren't as big. It's not likely to be as big as a Port Canaveral, for example, where they have enough space for all the different luggage tags. And so you might not be able to do that.
Well, thinking back on going to Alaska, your first time up there, do you have any tips that you'd want to offer out to those who are thinking about sailing next year or in the near future, going up to Alaska?
I would say definitely do it. Don't hesitate. It's a must-see, especially with the climate changing and everything. I would say the sooner you go, the better. As far as couple tips, it was kind of a blessing and a curse to go on the last sailing of the season because unfortunately, Disney ran out of some of the Alaska merchandise.
Ah.
Yeah, so I didn't get my fleece blanket with the logo on it that I wanted. We did get a couple other things, but a blessing was that a crew member told us that there were only about 200 kids on board, which was kind of astonishing. I mean, I knew that a lot of kids were in school this time of year, but I didn't realize it was going to be mostly adults on the cruise. So that's kind of interesting that, it's mostly an adult cruise, or at least ours was.
Yeah, I think that first week of September, pretty much every school district in the country is in school. If, there are people going, they either don't have school-age children yet, or they're pulling them out.
Right. I would say, again, getting to the port a little bit early on embark day would be a good idea, especially if you get lost like us. Another thing I would suggest is I think late seating days for dinner is better because for days when we were in port all day, you didn't really miss your dinner, which I know a lot of people were scrambling for lunch and dinner because a lot of people got back late. So they were kind of wondering what to do. But I mean, the late seating for us worked the best. I mean, we always do late seating and I like it better, but if you're going to spend all day in port, you might want to think about, what time you got to get back to the ship for the show or for dinner or, whatever you planned on doing that night.
Yeah, I think Alaska's kind of like Europe where there's just so much to do up there. And a lot of times it's a once-in-a-lifetime trip, so you really want to take advantage of that it could kind of put you in a hurry, couldn't it, once, getting back to the ship if you had that early seating. Obviously, if you have little kids, that kind of drives things sometimes, too. But did you guys eat any place else besides the restaurants? Did you eat in cabanas in the evening or anything besides Palo and the restaurants?
The only day we did cabanas was Icy Strait Point Day because we had a Palo brunch scheduled. So we got up super early to go have a very light breakfast. We're not big buffet people, but I'm glad it was busy when we got up there, but I'm glad we went because we got to see the Finding Dory wood panel murals that they did for cabanas, which was really cool.
Well, Christy, any final thoughts before we close the show tonight?
I don't have any.
Okay. Jen, anything else that stands out that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about tonight?
Just a couple of things I noticed on the Disney Cruise app. I didn't notice this last year, but I noticed this year that you can actually check your portfolio on the app.
Yes, that's a new addition.
Okay, I like it a lot. I would say double check that because something might be wrong. My husband signed for something and he wrote a $, but the person that read it thought it was a 1 and they thought we tipped 10 extra dollars and we didn't. So you want to double check that. And also, if you're going to book another cruise online, you can actually go into the app and get in the queue. So you don't have to go up on whatever deck it is and sit there and wait. You can get in the queue in the app and it tells you what number you're in line so that when you get closer, you can actually go up there. So you don't got to waste your time waiting in line. You can get in the queue and then you're good to go.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, you know what? I saw that in June and they did a little reader board across from the desk and it had people's names on it, but I thought you had to go up and actually put your name down a sheet of paper and then they put it up, so you can do that on the app. That's a great tip.
Yeah, if we would have known, that would have saved us a lot of time. We could have done something else and then have gone up there when it was our time, but we didn't know that until we got up there.
Well, that's a great tip for everybody. So speaking of which, what's next for you guys then?
So next year for our 10-year wedding anniversary, we booked a 3-night Disney Dream. We had never been on the Dream before, and we thought, what a great way to spend 10 years. We started with a honeymoon on DCL. We might as well celebrate our anniversary on DCL. And then we're going to spend a couple days at Disney World beforehand.
How nice.
Sounds like a perfect trip. What time of year is that? Is that like a Halloween on the high seas or anything like that, or is it in the summer?
we were looking at the Halloween on the high seas, but we decided that we'd rather be in Disney World for Halloween. So it's actually on November 1st.
Okay, perfect. Oh, what an amazing cruise. Anything else, Christy?
I have nothing else except to tell people, go to Alaska, figure out when you can go, start saving. It is an amazing place.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we all agree on that. Well, thanks again, Jen, for coming on and taking time out of your busy schedule to share your cruise and your husband's cruise up to Alaska with us. It was a pleasure talking with you again, and want to wish you all the best as you guys celebrate your 10th anniversary coming up. And when you guys get back from that, give us a shout, and we'll get you back on. We'll talk all about the dream.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Steve. Love the podcast.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming back, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Jen for coming back on and sharing her and her husband's just amazing trip up to Alaska on the Disney Wonder. And it did seem just like yesterday that I talked to her about that trip on the Magic that they took. And look at that. The year's already gone by. They've gone to Alaska, and we're on to 2019. So it's just been a joy for Christy and I to follow each and every one of you as you come on and share your experiences, and then kind of follow you along as you go on to the next one. So between now and our next show, if you'd like to reach out to Christy or I, you can reach me, Steve, at DCL Podcast on Facebook, also DCL Podcast on Twitter. You can always find Christy over at packyourpixiedust.com, PackYRPixieDust on Twitter, and Pack Your Pixie Dust on Facebook as well. And we're going to get that Instagram page going just a little bit better than what we have been. Well, Christy's been doing an amazing job. What really needs to happen is I need to get on there and kind of follow it along as well. So you can always follow us on Instagram at DCL_podcast over on Instagram. So if you would like to come on and share your experiences just like Jen, we sure would love to talk to you. Go ahead and reach out to Christy and I either through Facebook or through Twitter, and we'll get back to you and get you on the show just as quickly as we can. We've got a lot of fun ones coming up that we've recorded and are in the books to record. So just keep me on the lookout each week for each new show. And if you're enjoying our shows, we sure would appreciate it if you know somebody else who would, if you'd pass it on to them. Also, if you have time, you can always go over to iTunes and leave us a review as well. That helps us get a little bit better known in the podcasting community, especially the Disney and the cruising community. So between now and our next show, if you're heading out on your next vacation, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.